It was a Tuesday, which meant lasagna. He always made it on Tuesdays. It wasn't her favorite, but she pretended it was, and he pretended not to notice. Their whole marriage, in many ways, was a curated series of such exchanges, little acts of mutual denial dressed up as love. She wasn't home yet. The house was silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the soft clink of his fork against the Pyrex dish as he spooned himself a corner piece, steam curling into the kitchen's amber light. The table was already set for two. 2 glasses, 2 folded napkins, 1 knife laid ever so slightly askew, not by him. That's when it happened. Not an explosion, not a gut punch. Just something subtle, like a static shock you can't forget. His hand reached for the salt, but paused midair, fingers tightening slightly around the shaker as he noticed the book. It was the old leather-bound journal he used for budgeting, groceries, bills, the occasional handwritten grocery list in tiny script. He hadn't touched it in weeks. Yet there it was, out of place, lying open on the countertop near the fruit bowl. A quiet thing, but not where it belonged. He didn't move right away, just stared at the pages fluttering slightly under the kitchen fan. The journal had been kept in the drawer by the fridge since March. They both knew that. She never touched it. She called it his little accountant book, and once mocked the way he wrote in it like an old Victorian banker. He closed the fridge door softly. His appetite was already fading. He walked over, each footstep unnaturally loud against the tiled floor, and looked down at the open page. It wasn't budget notes. It was handwriting. His. But he didn't write it. His style was angular, cramped from years of typing too much and handwriting too little. This was different, looser, rounder, almost practiced in its imperfection, as if someone was trying to write like him, but didn't quite know how. At first, that's all he focused on. The way the GS dipped too low, the unnatural consistency of the spacing. But then he read the words. Her perfume was different this time. Something floral. It lingered on my collar all night. If Clara noticed, she didn't say anything. He read it twice, then again, and again, and then he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. A breath caught in his throat. It wasn't fear, not even rage. Just the cold click of understanding when something you thought was solid reveals the hairline fracture running through its core. He turned the page. More entries, each written in that near imitation of his hand, each describing an affair that never happened, each one more elaborate than the last. A waitress in Denver, a co-worker from HR, the neighbor with the aggressive hydrangeas. None of it true, none of it real. He hadn't even been in Denver. But the key wasn't in the lies. It was in the absurdity of the effort. Because someone had gone through all the trouble of scripting a betrayal in his voice, carefully, deliberately, and then left it just barely hidden, where he might find it, where he might read it, and believe he'd lost his mind. But it hadn't been hidden well enough. No, it had been displayed, staged, left open on a kitchen counter while she was supposedly out buying Parmesan. That's what gave her away. She didn't buy Parmesan. She hated the smell. Always said it reminded her of feet. That was the word she used. Feet. He slowly closed the journal. Didn't rush. Didn't speak. Just stood there for a moment, listening to the house. Listening for the sound of keys in the door. A part of him wanted to put the book back where it belonged and pretend it was all some elaborate joke he didn't understand. But another part, colder, more ancient, had already started connecting dots. The missing bottle of Glenlivet. The lipstick smudge on the guest towel 2 weeks ago. The way she asked him how work was going before he'd even sat down. Things he'd cataloged without meaning to. Things that now formed a pattern too clean to ignore. It wasn't that she'd cheated. It was that she wanted him to believe he had. And that was worse. Because it wasn't passion. It wasn't drunken weakness or misguided affection. It was calculation. Psychological. Surgical. She wasn't punishing him for something he did. She was manufacturing a reason to destroy him, just in case she needed one. He turned off the oven, poured himself a glass of water, and sat at the table without touching his food. The knife was still crooked. He left it that way. Let her find it like that. Let her wonder if he noticed. Let her wonder how much he knew. He'd give her no anger, no confrontation, just the silence, the waiting, the slow erosion of her own certainty. Because now it was her turn to doubt. And he could wait forever. The mornings changed first. She still kissed him goodbye, but it was different, like someone folding a napkin automatically, not knowing they'd done it. Her lips barely touched his cheek, and her voice was always cheerful. Too cheerful, the kind of tone people use when trying to sell something. "Have a good day, babe," she'd chirp, slinging her tote bag over one shoulder, phone already in hand, already gone. He started noticing she never asked him how his day was anymore. She'd come home talking about hers, in bursts, projects, new clients, some workshop her boss wanted her to attend. The buzzwords got louder every week. Individual space, emotional expansion, boundaries that serve us. It sounded like a self-help podcast that forgot there were two people in the house. He didn't argue, not because he agreed, but because he was listening, watching, learning her new rhythm. It was careful, calculated. She had become immaculate in the ways she avoided contact. She touched less, laughed less, or maybe she laughed more, but never at the right things. A dumb joke he made while washing dishes used to get a smirk, maybe a nudge. Now it got nothing but a polite hum, like background noise she was trying to ignore. He started testing it, said weird things on purpose, made up fake coworkers, told her he'd been offered a job in Iceland. She didn't blink, just nodded absently, spooning yogurt into a bowl she wouldn't finish. "That's amazing, babe," she said once. "I love how you dream big." And then she left the room. The phone started locking itself after 30 seconds. He didn't even know that was a setting. It used to stay open forever, playing music while they cooked or streaming shows on long car rides. Now it snapped shut like a trap. Notifications silenced. Lock screen blank. When he asked her to pull up a photo from their trip to Big Sur, she acted like she forgot they'd gone. "Was that this year?" she asked, tilting her head, tapping through endless scrolls of photos he wasn't in. No. Wait, it was last year, right? I had the bad sunburn." She laughed like it was funny. Like her not remembering the only vacation they'd taken in 2 years was a charming quirk. One night she came home late, claimed there was a team dinner. Her breath smelled like sweet liquor she never drank, the kind she used to say was for college girls and bad decisions. She peeled off her heels at the door and tossed her coat on the floor, humming something tuneless, and went to the bedroom without looking at him. He picked up the coat. In the pocket was a receipt from a rooftop bar across town. 2 drinks, same kind. Time-stamped an hour before she said dinner ended. He folded it neatly and put it in his own jacket. He didn't confront her. He wanted to see if she'd mention it on her own. She didn't. They still watched TV together, sometimes. Sat on the same couch, under the same blanket, like nothing had changed. But she always kept a pillow between them now. Claimed it helped her posture. She scrolled through her phone when things got too slow on screen. She never asked him to pause. It was as if nothing happening on screen was worth remembering. One night, she laughed, suddenly, loudly, at a message that lit up her screen. She tilted the phone away before he could glance. "Just Mandy being weird," she said, grinning. But Mandy was in Italy, and the time difference meant it was 4 a.m. there. He said nothing. Later that night, when she was in the shower, he sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone plugged in beside the lamp. Locked. Always locked. He didn't touch it. Didn't need to. Because just above the screen, between the black border and the plastic of the case, was a small red sticker. 1/2 centimeter. Barely visible. A detail too specific to be accidental. He remembered it instantly. 6 months ago, she bought a burner phone after getting scammed by a fake debt collector. A just-in-case thing. She said it was for emergencies. She kept it in a drawer in her office. It had the same sticker. She said it helped her tell the phones apart. This wasn't that phone. He stood slowly, walked out of the room, and stared at the dark living room. From there, he could hear the water running, could almost see the steam rising under the doorframe. She was humming in there. Something upbeat, something fake. The sound bounced off tile like it belonged to someone else. The tension should have cracked right then. That's what usually happens in stories. A confrontation. A name dropped. A scream. A shattering glass. A slammed door. But he didn't do that. He just stood there, hand in his pocket, feeling the folded receipt like a splinter under his skin. When she came out wrapped in a towel, hair pinned up, smiling in that same weightless way, he met her eyes for 1/2 a second. Enough to make her blink. Then he smiled back. "Sleep okay?" he asked. "Like a rock," she said. She was already forgetting things. He wasn't. He didn't need proof anymore. He just needed time. It was her toothbrush that did it. Not the absence of it. He'd already gotten used to the small silences she left around the house. But the replacement. A new one. Different color. Sleek. Black, matte finish, expensive brand he didn't recognize. He noticed it the moment he opened the mirrored cabinet on a Sunday morning, groggy from half-sleep and hollow thoughts. The old one had been a soft pink, a bit frayed, used down to its last ethical bristle. She bought it with him at a drugstore 2 years ago, made a joke about how he always picked the boring blue ones. This new one had no memory attached, no fingerprints, no origin story. It had simply arrived, an uninvited ghost in their shared space. He stood there staring at it for too long, as adjusting to the weight of what it meant. She hadn't told him she'd gotten a new brush. She hadn't mentioned losing the old one. She hadn't said a word. Because that toothbrush wasn't meant for him to see. That brush was meant for someone else. Or more precisely, for her to share with someone else when he wasn't around. It wasn't evidence, not in the crude sense. No lipstick-stained collar. No hidden love notes. But it was worse than that. It was deliberate. It was clean. Thought out. Hidden in plain sight. A decision made with the quiet confidence of someone who knew she wouldn't be caught, because she thought he wasn't looking. That's what snapped. Not the betrayal itself, but the arrogant ease of it. He didn't touch it. Didn't confront her. Instead, he wiped his face with a towel, made his coffee, and stared out the window like a man measuring distance before a long shot. The next few days, he tested her without asking questions. Left the cabinet open after shaving. Waited to see if she'd react. She didn't. He adjusted the angle of the brush slightly, like a needle on a record player. She moved it back. Not to its original position, but a hair off, as if it had been used, then replaced. That was confirmation. It meant she still thought she was winning. Still thought he hadn't noticed the shift in gravity. That was her first mistake. Her second came 3 nights later. She left her laptop open on the kitchen counter, screen half-dimmed, a browser tab still visible behind an email draft. Not emails with another man. He knew she was too cautious for that. It was an online order confirmation. A bed frame. Low profile, Scandinavian design, queen-sized, shipped to a storage unit registered under her maiden name. He memorized the order number, closed the laptop quietly, and returned to chopping vegetables like nothing had happened. And in that moment, something in him crystallized. He'd been circling suspicion for weeks, orbiting the slow gravitational pull of betrayal, but now he was inside the event horizon. He knew, not just that she was unfaithful, but that she was planning, strategizing, preparing for a life without him. A life where she got to leave the mess clean, walk away unbruised, keep the friends, control the story. That's when the cold came. Not anger, not heartbreak, just clarity. Pure, surgical clarity. She wasn't just cheating, she was erasing him. Slowly, elegantly. Like a page torn out of a diary and burned until even the smoke forgot what it said. He poured wine that night, played her favorite music, laughed at her work stories, let her believe she still had the upper hand. But in his mind, he was already moving pieces across a board she didn't know existed. He opened a private bank account the next morning, transferred just enough to go unnoticed, canceled a shared credit card by mistake, contacted an old friend who worked in real estate, reached out to a lawyer 2 towns over, someone with no ties to her circles. He started recording small details, screenshots of messages, phone logs, duplicate invoices from a shared streaming account where a second profile had been created under the name A. He never asked about it. He just watched. Not for answers anymore, but for patterns, for weaknesses. She talked about personal growth at dinner now, said things like, "I feel like I'm finally coming into myself," as if she wasn't disassembling their marriage bolt by bolt. He nodded, asked her questions, supported her new hobbies, pretended to sleep when she left the bed at 2 a.m. to scroll through her phone in the dark. He didn't need to catch her anymore. He was done with catching. Now he was building something slow, deliberate, impossible to trace until it was too late. She thought she was walking toward freedom. She didn't know she was walking into a trap, and he would not raise his voice. He would not cry. When the time came, his revenge would be silent, final, and poetic, because she had underestimated him, because she thought love made him weak. But love was never the thing that tethered him. It was the illusion, and illusions, once shattered, become weapons. It was supposed to be just another dinner with friends, safe, casual, curated. She picked the place, upscale, dimly lit, trendy enough to make her feel important, but quiet enough to play perfect couple. He let her plan it all. Sat across from her in his tailored shirt, sipping his water slowly, nodding as she laughed too loudly at someone's story, her hand grazing his like it still belonged there. But her eyes kept flicking to her phone. She didn't even realize she was doing it. They never do. The table buzzed with half interest in wine lists and vacation plans, And when dessert came, she leaned in and did it, reached across the table and said, too brightly, I'm just so grateful we've worked through everything. Right, babe? Her smile was almost convincing. Her hand stayed on his. That was the moment she forced it. That was the moment she called the fire down on herself. He set his fork down with quiet precision. No theatrics. Just a calm so still it cut through the chatter around them. That's interesting, he said, voice low, like the beginning of a storm. She blinked. Her grip on his hand tightened. What do you mean? Still smiling, but the eyes shifted. Already scanning. Already calculating. He turned slightly, so the others at the table couldn't help but listen. You're grateful we worked through what, exactly? She let out a soft laugh, performative. You know, everything we've been through. Relationships take work. They do, he said, nodding. But I'm curious. Which part are you grateful for? The emotional sabotage, or the part where you staged your own betrayal in my handwriting? Her mouth twitched. Someone at the table awkwardly coughed into a napkin. What are you talking about? She asked, smiling harder. This isn't funny. No, he agreed, but it's true. The journal, for starters. The fake entries you wrote pretending I was cheating on you. Slipping them into places I'd find them. Hoping I'd start doubting myself. That was bold. She leaned back, eyes wide, chuckling nervously. I don't even know what you're talking about. That's insane. Is it? He said, cocking his head. Because I matched the handwriting. Ran it through a comparison program. It's not mine, but it's close enough. Sloppy. Like someone mimicking instead of writing. Now the table was frozen. Her friends, their friends, silent. Watching like witnesses at a slow-motion accident. She tried to rally. Even if that were true, you've been distant for months. I thought you were pulling away. I needed answers. So you fabricated them, he said. That's your justification? You felt insecure, so instead of talking to me, you decided to manufacture a reason to hate me. A reason to leave clean. She crossed her arms, the mask cracking at the corners. I had to do something. You were shutting me out. I was drowning. No, he said, eyes narrowing. You were rehearsing your exit. Slowly. Strategically. You made me doubt myself. Made me question reality. And while I was trying to be better for you, you were carving the floor out from under me. And you smiled the whole time. You don't get to play the victim, she snapped. You were never present. Never emotionally available. You buried yourself in your routines. You stopped seeing me. I saw everything, he said, voice rising just enough. I saw the late nights. The new passwords. The self-growth lectures that always excluded me. You told me boundaries were healthy, but what you really meant was isolation. Control. You wanted to be the hero of a story where I was the villain. She scoffed. You're twisting things. No, he said, leaning forward, eyes locked on hers. That's your game. Twisting. Shifting. Gaslighting. Making me the unreliable narrator of my own marriage. You wanted freedom without guilt. So you tried to turn me into a monster you could escape from. But here's the problem. I'm not the one who disappeared. I stayed. I listened. I waited. And now everyone hears what I hear. Her jaw clenched. You're humiliating me. You humiliated yourself the moment you decided your piece was worth more than my reality. The moment you started playing puppet master with my sanity. Her lip quivered. She tried to say something, maybe another excuse, maybe one last lifeline, but nothing came. Just silence. Her eyes darted around the table, searching for sympathy, but no one moved. No one spoke. He didn't need to raise his voice. The truth had already done the screaming for him. Finally, she whispered, You don't have to do this here. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, No, I really do. Because you needed an audience. You always have. But now, so do I. She looked away, blinking fast. Her face was pale. For the first time, she looked smaller, shrinking under the weight of her own fabrication. He didn't flinch, didn't apologize, didn't leave. He just sat there, still, silent, watching. And that was the final blow. She followed him out into the corridor, heels echoing too loudly on the tile, a hand gripping his arm like it still had claim. Her voice trembled at first, then rose with brittle urgency. You're overreacting, she said, eyes wide, trying to flash that old innocence, that practiced sincerity. You're making a scene out of nothing. It was just confusion. It wasn't real. I panicked, that's all. I needed something to make sense of what was happening between us. He didn't stop walking, didn't look at her, just kept his pace steady, like he was walking through fog that had lost its shape. You're not perfect either, you know, she snapped, voice sharpening, bitterness leaking out between the cracks in her composure. You've never been. You're cold. You're mechanical. You just go through life like it's a spreadsheet, and I'm the footnote. You ignored me. I was invisible. What was I supposed to do? He turned, finally. Not abruptly, not with fury, just with that same cold stillness he'd shown at the table. You were supposed to be honest, he said. If not with me, then at least with yourself. But you couldn't even do that. She flinched, then reached for a new mask, softness, tears. I do love you, she said. I always have. I just got scared. You were drifting away from me. You wouldn't open up. I felt like I didn't matter anymore. Like I was drowning and you were already gone. He didn't blink. So you built a lifeboat out of lies, he said. You didn't try to fix anything. You tried to control the collapse. You wanted to ruin me before I had the chance to leave you. Her voice cracked. You'll never find someone who loves you like I did. He smiled at that. Not cruelly, just tired. If that was love, he said, I'd rather be alone. She stepped closer, her eyes pleading, hands trembling now. Please, she whispered. Please, we can fix this. We can start over. You know me. You know me. He looked her in the eyes, and for a flicker of a second, something inside her paused. Hope maybe. But then he spoke, low and unshaking. No. I knew the version of you let me see. The loyal wife. The empathetic partner. The woman who said she wanted to build a life with me. But behind that, you were crafting a different story. One where I was the villain, and you were the brave survivor. You didn't love me. You loved the version of yourself that got to be right about me failing you. She gasped, as if struck, and around them, the restaurant buzz had turned to whispers and glances, faces half-turned in polite discomfort. You think you can come back from this? She hissed, desperate now, clinging to whatever power she thought she still held. You think you're just going to move on and be fine? You won't. You'll ruin every relationship you touch because no one will ever really understand you. Not like I did. He didn't even sigh. You didn't understand me, he said quietly. You studied me, like a blueprint, so you could dismantle me piece by piece and call it growth. You didn't want a partner. You wanted a mirror that reflected what you needed to believe about yourself. She was shaking now. I gave you everything. And there it was, her last shield. Victimhood. Martyrdom. The final trick of someone who knew the game was over but still wanted to control the story. He stepped closer, voice a whisper meant only for her, but loud enough for everyone to feel. You gave me the illusion of safety. Then you weaponized it. And now you want mercy. Her lips parted, then shut again. Tears welled but didn't fall. Around them, no one interrupted. No one comforted her. No one looked away. And he didn't offer a hand. He didn't storm out. He just stood there in the silence that followed, letting it grow, letting it thicken around her until she was alone in it. No fury. No exit speech. Just a look. Just absence. That was the moment she broke. Because he wasn't reacting. He wasn't negotiating. He wasn't hers anymore. He was just done. And that, more than any word he'd spoken, was the final, unspoken sentence that destroyed her. You don't matter here anymore. She stopped posting selfies. The inspirational quotes dried up. No more curated brunch shots or videos of her talking about healing through chaos. Somewhere between the confrontation and the cold months that followed, the world she built on performance crumbled beneath her heels. First it was the whispers at work. Someone had seen the receipts, the email trail, the breakdown at that restaurant. Her reputation, once impeccable, became a quiet scandal. HR didn't fire her. They didn't have to. The pressure did. She resigned 2 weeks later under the guise of pursuing new opportunities, but no one bought it. Her lover blocked her before she even reached home that night. His profile gone. His number changed. Her friends, the ones who cheered her on during her journey of growth, one by one turned cold. Muted. Disappeared. They weren't stupid. They knew when a ship was sinking and when the woman on board had drilled the holes herself. Even her family. Her mother who once said she'd been too good for him. Her sister who toasted at their wedding. Stopped answering. Holidays passed. Birthdays came and went. Silence sat beside her at every meal. The apartment she once decorated like an Instagram showroom slowly faded too. Bills unpaid. Plans unraveled. She tried therapy. Tried journaling. Tried manifesting something. Anything. But none of it brought him back. And that was the only thing she wanted now. Not because she loved him. Not really. But because without him, the story had no center. She'd rewritten him into a villain, and now, with no villain, she had no meaning. So she reached out. A message at first. "I still love you," she typed, hands shaking over a keyboard that used to write his erasure. No response. A few days later, "We were soulmates. I know you felt it too." Still nothing. So she drove by his street one night. Just once. Then again. Then twice in 1 week. She waited outside his office building once, watched him through the glass as he joked with a colleague, looking lighter than she remembered. Happy even. That's when it broke inside her. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just realized he wasn't in pain. He wasn't healing. He was free. And she wasn't the villain in his story anymore. She wasn't anything. So she called. One last time. Left a voicemail, her voice thick with regret and desperation. "Please just talk to me. I can't breathe anymore. I can't sleep. I miss you. I need you." He listened to it once. Just once. And then he deleted it. Not out of anger. Not even revenge. Just disinterest. She was a stranger to him now. A woman with a familiar voice and a long history of war crimes against trust. He didn't hate her. Hate would have meant she still held something. Instead, he felt what you feel when a dream fades after waking. A faint memory, blurred at the edges, too thin to hold. He thought of the toothbrush, the fake journal, the staged betrayal she tried to pin on him. And he thought, not of heartbreak, but of how peaceful life had become without the noise. He didn't reply, didn't block her either, because strangers don't need to be blocked. They're just gone. And when she finally gave up, when the calls stopped and the messages dried up, he felt nothing. Not victory, not closure, just the deep, settled quiet of a house no longer haunted. Thanks for listening. Let me know where you're watching from and what you would have done if it were your wife.